The recent flooding in Texas has resulted in a flood of cars, trucks, and other vehicles that have suffered water damage. When a disaster like the Texas flooding hits, law enforcement, insurance companies, their vendors, and the National Insurance Crime Bureau go to work identifying, evaluating, transporting, storing, retitling, and selling these flood-damaged vehicles, all aimed at making sure they don't get into the hands of unsuspecting buyers. This Copart facility in Houston expects to process 2,500 to 3,000 vehicles, about a third of all the insured total losses.
We believe there's probably it's a 7,000 to 10,000 car event. Through the central Houston area, that's obviously where most of the damage occurred. We think it should be maybe a 2-month process to get this thing from cradle to grave.
The cars that arrive here at this Houston Copart facility are not in good shape, full of water, mold, mud, debris. They've been declared total losses by their insurance companies.
We make arrangements to logistically move all these cars around and bring them into one of our Copart sites, like here in Houston, which we have roughly 200 acres to process cars for insurance companies. If you look at from cradle to grave, it's usually about a 60-day assignment cycle. So basically, we bring a car in, we receive it, and we go through a detailed process where we have to check the car, confirm the data, confirm what it is, and of course the branding and everything that goes with it. Once we receive it, we want to make sure that we gather as much information as we can so we can share that information with obviously our buyers, and the information that we do gather is important because we're also sharing that information back to the insurance company so we can work together. Once we receive the vehicle, we have a detailed check-in process where we gather that information off the VIN off the car. We gather that, match it with the title, the ownership paperwork that we receive from the insurance company through the owner, and we make sure that stuff matches and mirrors one another. So once we process that, we send it to the DMV, and from there we gather what we would consider a sellable piece of equipment with regards to a title. So we gather all this information, and we have standard reporting within our system to make sure that we have a clear, transparent process that we share with everybody so we can protect the consumer at the end of the day. But the majority of the cars that we do sell through our auctions are going to be parted out to companies that will dismantle them and then obviously sell those parts back into the market. There are a few folks that actually will repair certain cars, but when you're dealing with an event, a life event like this, that's typically going to be, all these cars are going to be parted out and sold back into the market, supply and demand for repairing cars.
The National Insurance Crime Bureau assists law enforcement, its insurance company members, and Copart in identifying vehicles and making sure they're entered into the VIN-check database so the public can check to see if a car may have been declared a salvaged vehicle.
There was a lot of lessons learned, Roger, from going back 10 years to Katrina, and then Ike, and then of course to the current event here in Houston. And I think we've gotten more effective and efficient in identifying the cars that are involved in these events, making sure that those VINs, those vehicle descriptors, are entered into the appropriate databases, and that really cuts down on the ability of somebody that wants to obtain one of these vehicles, maybe wash the title and then sell it downstream to an unsuspecting consumer, because the information's there, number one, for consumers to run car check reports or Carfax reports, or go to our NICB VIN check site to see if there's any type of salvage indicator or red flag on those cars.
Fraudulent claims, VIN switching, and other related crimes follow any kind of catastrophe, and the NICB is on the lookout for bad actors.
It'll cut down on a lot of the title fraud. It'll cut down on a lot of the Craigslist type vehicle theft scams. It's going to be a very, very important tool for not just NICB, but for our law enforcement partners and our member insurance companies to combat fraud.
To access VIN-check free of charge, go to www.nicb.org and look for tips on how to avoid getting soaked. For the National Insurance Crime Bureau, I'm Roger Morris.
South Road.